Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video. If the audio quality sounds terrible this time, I do apologize. My Lavelle mics ended up breaking. The little dongle that I use for the adapter from my iPad ended up breaking. And the reason why is because the little USB-C piece that goes into the iPad, the wireless transmitter, the way that they made it for that particular Lavelle mic, I don't know why they did it that way, but it wasn't very secure to the motherboard. So it ended up falling off, or I ended up breaking it off, because yeah, I put it into the iPad and it just wasn't turning on. It wasn't showing the green lights that it normally does. So now I'm using the microphones from my Beats Fit Pro, which is my headphones, which aren't as good. The microphone quality is horrendous, probably, and it sounds like I'm probably on the telephone. But I'm gonna try my best when I'm editing this to try to make the voice sound at least somewhat presentable. But we'll see how that goes. Anyways, today's video is gonna be about. I think today is going to be about relationships, because for men and women and men, right? And this guy, I guess, go, if you're man and man, woman and woman, whatever combination that you want to go into. But specifically, I want to talk about like women and men in particular, because I try to avoid this type of stuff because it's so dumb to look at it. But online, I've seen a lot of these pop the balloon games. And I'm pretty sure if you're anywhere on the internet, you've probably seen it too, where it's a man, not particularly, but most of the time it's a black man. And it's a black woman. And the black woman is going in on him and trying to make him look bad, on camera or whatever. And then the man either rebuttals and tries to make her look bad or tries to make her look dumb. Or sometimes he'll take the more classy approach and then he'll be like, I understand that, I appreciate that, and I respect that, and blah, blah, blah. And, and in the comments, it's always back and forth between men and women. And it's such a toxic thing. And I know it's just fun, and I know some people think it's just fun, but it shapes your perception, at least maybe for me it did. From my perception of the way that I view, and maybe it's a small percentage, maybe not enough people even watch these videos for it to be even an issue, but it's something that I've noticed, and it's something that I've wanted to talk about, because it's so weird seeing it and seeing people, the way people interact with it and comment on it and talk about it and talk about people like they're just observing it. And because a lot of these pop the balloon shows, even maybe they're scripted, maybe they're not, maybe they're just off the cuff, maybe that's what's making them so authentic. Maybe the people are nervous. There's a whole bunch of factors that we don't know as viewers. However, it reminds me a lot of these like dating shows, like The Bachelor being one of the oldest ones. But even like if you go back to back when I was a kid, there was Flavor Flav, who was is part of Public Enemy, and the Public Enemy being a rap group. If you don't know, hopefully you know that, but if not, Public Enemy, the Fight the Power song and all that, and, protesting police brutality and all that. Anyways, Flavor Flav, he had a TV show. It was called Flavor of Love. And I remember watching this as a kid, and I thought it was the funniest crap ever. And, I thought it was just entertainment. And as I've grown up, I started realizing that it didn't really shape my perception of relationships all that much. But I wonder, like, especially nowadays with adolescents being so smart, I act like I'm old, but I'm only 31. But I like to think that I have a pretty old mindset and old soul when it comes to dating and all that. Because I'm under the umbrella or perception that, I want to date for a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, and then get married, be married for about a year or two, and then have kids after that. So a very traditional type of mindset in terms of that. I have more progressive mindsets for other things, but in terms of the way that I would like my relationship to be, that's kind of the arc of how I would like it to go. Of course, things can change. It's not like a hard, set thing where, oh no, we have to date for 2 to 3 years, and then we have to get married after 2 to 3 years, and then after 2 to 3 years of being married, then we have to have kids. It's like, no, I kind of play it by ear, but that's kind of the roadmap. It's just like with any goal that you have in your life of, you're trying to save this amount of money, but you're not like, oh, I have to do this. And it's kind of, I kind of go with the flow of it, but for sure, I don't want to have kids before marriage. I know that part. So that's why, that's kind of a hard set thing in my mind. I won't compromise on that part of it because I want to be married for at least some time. I don't want to get married and then have a kid like a month later, or she's pregnant and then we get married and then we have the kid. That's not something that I would like to happen. If it does happen that way, and it works out, that's fine. But in the way I've looked at relationships, no, it's not guaranteed, of course. No relationship is guaranteed. But from what I've seen, if you have kids prior to you being married, then to me, I don't know, I haven't looked at the statistics, and maybe I should have before talking about this or before trying to get my opinion on this, but I would assume from my own perception, life events and all that, that if you get married after you have kids, I would think that you would get a divorce. It's more likely that you would get a divorce. And that could be false. I could be pulling that out of my ass. Trust me. I like I said, I haven't looked at it. I haven't looked at any data. And I probably should have before giving that statistic. It's just that I guess I'm trying to give a more logical explanation as to why I want to have kids after I get married. But also, it's just my preference. So, I think everybody has their own preference. It's up to them. I don't want to judge people based off of what my, standards or my perceptions are. Another quick thing before I continue with this. You'll notice that the drawing that I'm doing, normally I screen record, and my iPad's acting up again where for some reason it's just not working when it comes to screen recording. It stutters or it skips through like the screen recording. Excuse me, hiccup. So what I ended up doing is that I just ended up using a time lapse from Procreate that automatically happens. Excuse me, I got the hiccups for some reason. Good luck. Yeah, so so you'll just see that, all of a sudden there's lines just popping up out of nowhere. You don't really see like kind of I try to slow it down by a lot, by like 3%, so you can kind of follow it. But yeah, so, and then the reference is on the left of your screen, so that's pretty obvious. But yeah, so getting back to what I was talking about in terms of men and women and about this pop the balloon crap, right? It and also about The Bachelor, Flavor of Love, the I Love New York TV show, and all these TV shows like Love is Blind that people watch. And I get it, it's fun, but I do think that there's a part of it that it it warps our perspective on relationships and how relationships should go, and about, how we should, because everything's very fast paced in these shows, if you notice. And I think that we as people think that there has to be a spark like right away. And like in terms of relationship, which I guess, if you like somebody, a lot of times, within a, a few seconds, if you like them, at least physically. And then after that, then once you get to know them as a personality and all that, then, you start realizing, okay, maybe they're not the person I thought they were. They're beautiful though, but maybe they're not the person. Or the opposite. Maybe it's like, oh man, they are awesome. To me, like the way that I would think is that if women have the look that I like, and I have different likes for, different women, but it's all about just, I guess, the mood for that day. Anyways, point is, the physical, I'm like, oh, okay, I like the physical. And then I talk to him and it's like, oh man, if she has a personality, man, I love her. Like that. It just goes straight from 0 to 100, which is terrible. And I'm like, man, I gotta work on that. So that's why, I realized I gotta work on that. So that was something that kind of prevented me from being in relationships for a while. But yeah, so yeah, in terms of the mindset when it comes to men and women, at least online, I don't know about the, obviously online, the internet is not the world, even though pretty much the whole world uses the internet. Everybody's not on social media like that. There are millions of people on social media, but it's still not the billions of people that are in the world. There are literally billions of people that don't have a social media account. But on the other hand, there are millions that do have it, and actually billions that do have a social media account or some type of online presence, whether it be like their own website, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, aka X. I'll never call it X, but to each their own. Twitter, Facebook. To me, I use Threads, so I like Threads and I like Instagram. Those are my two favorite social media platforms, and also Pinterest, but I don't really do any posting on Pinterest. I mostly just use it for like references when I'm drawing and stuff. But yeah, so looks like my time lapse is skipping too. What the heck? I don't know what's happening now. Well, I guess because I slowed down the time lapse, so it's kind of like skipping through. Yeah, that's weird. Anyways, getting back to what I was talking about. Hopefully you bear with this drawing. Hopefully I can figure out the screen recording stuff so that I can slow it down a little more. But yeah, so men and women, relationships, online at least, the perception that I'm getting is that men don't like women, women don't like men. And like I said, that could be a very internet-based opinion, very much based in like my online presence and seeing all this stuff in the comments. But yeah, I just seen the division between the two genders, and I'm like, honestly, it's kind of sad, because for me as a man, it's disheartening to see that some women, they just don't think that they need men. And I'm like, in my mind, I know that we, as a whole, as a society, we need each other. Men need women, women need men. And I would think that's a very obvious thing, because think about it this way. If men didn't need women, women didn't need men, in about 120 years, if there were no kids that were had in those 120 years, the human race as a species, we would just die off. Because most people aren't making it to 120. So like the current generation, like the babies, the ones that are just born, like once they die, the human race would just be non-existent, and we just wouldn't be here. So obviously, we need each other in that respect, right? And even in, just besides that procreation perspective, I think that we need each other, like, emotionally, also for infrastructure, like, just so emotionally, infrastructurally, economically. Like, there are so many things that we just need each other for. It's ridiculous, the notion that some people have that, and this goes on both sides. It's not just me talking about women saying that, oh, I don't need a man, because, that is a thing. But also men are like, I don't need a woman. And it's like, well, we don't need each other, and it's this standout. It's like this Cold War of, like, genders. And it's so weird to me. And I'm like, why? Because me personally, I love women, right? And I understand that women have their flaws. I understand that we as men have flaws, and for anybody to think or to be under the impression that somehow we shouldn't have flaws, it's a false perspective. Like, it's a perspective that is I'm not gonna say it's a dumb perspective, but it's an unrealistic expectation on each other. And it's put a post out on Threads about the unrealistic beauty standards especially for women, but even for men. Like, men are starting to get that unrealistic. Of course, some men, they don't like being called beautiful, but it's an unrealistic beauty standard for men too, where you have to, be this, like, muscular, not too muscular, but muscular, athletic look, and gotta have a great jawline, you gotta have good teeth, and you gotta have a hairline. You can't be bald, or maybe you can be bald, but you gotta have a beard if you're bald, or you gotta, there's beauty standards for men too, right? It's not as prominent as it is for women, but it's a thing. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that. It's not like, and then I guess that's another thing that kind of leads me into another thing of us, like, we try to, and maybe it's not, and I'm always preface my opinion with maybe it's just what I've seen. But from what I've seen, a lot of the tension that we have between the two sides, the men and women, women and men, is the perception that one has it worse than the other in terms of, like, society. And I'm like, we both eat shit. Like, we both we all live in a crappy world, I try to be more optimistic about it, but the real perspective is that, this is not the optimal. Well, we don't have the most optimal ideologies as a society, obviously. And, lawmakers and all that, trying to put that division between the genders, it doesn't help anything, And one thing that I'm trying to do in general in my life, but also just trying to preach, is that it's okay to like men, it's okay to like women, and it's okay for us to acknowledge that, hey, we need each other and we want to be around each other, and it's okay. Like, for me, I absolutely love women, and because I love women, maybe I'm more understanding, empathetic, and I grew up around a lot of women, so I understand what women have to deal with in terms of not only society, but when it comes to men as well. They have to deal with a lot of crap. Just like us as men, we have to deal with a lot of crap too, and we have to be this, like, overly masculine, stoic individual that nothing rattles us, and it's like, it's a very unrealistic expectation that both sides have, and we think that for some reason, some of us think that one of us has it worse than the other. And it's like, no, we don't, one doesn't have it worse than the other per se. We have different struggles, yes, but we're all in this. It's so cliche and so corny to say, but we're all in this together, And if you've seen High School Musical, I was about to start singing the High School Musical. We're all in this together, but I'm not going to do it. So, but you get the point. We're all in this together, and we're all trying to get through this thing we call life. And it's unfortunate that we have this division, and we have to have this Cold War, where this gender war of like, no, we have it worse. No, you have it worse. I forget what it's called, but yeah. So it's just something I wanted to talk about, and this video is coming to an end in about a little less than a minute. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about it and kind of give my perspective on it. And yeah, I mean, I'm just hoping, one of my hopes is that we're able to put aside our differences, and we're able to just see that, all of us, we all deal with stuff, and it's okay. We don't have to judge an entire gender off of one person's, one representation, off of one person. Because once somebody goes through a bad relationship, you think that whole gender is like that, unfortunately. Or some people do, But everybody's different. At least I hope people see that. But yeah, just be kind to each other. That's all. Try to understand each other. Try to be empathetic to each other. It's what I try to do in my life. I'm not always good at it. Sometimes I'm a hypocrite. I get that. But, I try to take a step back, and I try to make sure that I try to lead with understanding, love, empathy, and all that great stuff. But yeah, I'll go ahead and end this video, and just something to think about. If you want, you can leave a comment about what your perspective on it is, and hopefully try to stay respectful. That's my only thing. If you disagree, disagree respectfully. Don't be calling people names and all that. But yeah, I'll talk to you on the next one.